Good morning, this is John, host of the Prepared Mind channel. Welcome new subscribers, welcome old subscribers. I want to thank you all for contributing and participating in the comments section. And let's get to the topic. A lot of you have probably been wondering what set me off to discuss feminism so much and to discuss MGTOW and men and leadership and masculine qualities and all that. Well, as we get closer to SHTF, and I know we're getting closer, I feel it's going to be important just for your survival. Just for your survival, to understand the difference between being a man and being a woman, thinking like a man and thinking like a woman. And I really don't care if the topic in my discussion or my opinions are considered sexist. I just don't care. It doesn't matter. If it's true, it's true. If it's not, it's not. You can choose to believe what you want, take the information for what it is, take it or leave it. But history proves out what I'm going to say. So let's see if I'm accurate. Masculinity has been under attack. Shortly after the United States Constitution was written and passed. The reason being is that men began to act like men and they stood up to the king. They quit being peasants and servants of the king and became their own men. They were willing to take action for their own benefit. They quit acting like pussies, in other words. Once you've had enough, you stop having enough and you give up being weak. So men were very strong through the mid and late 1700s and into the early to mid 1800s. But they were very hard to control. These wild, free men. And they believed that they had a good, they meaning the powers that be. Back then, there were powers that be. They needed to reel men back in. And they started doing it with psychology. They outlawed what is known as the duel. The duel was an individual man's way to challenge the honor of another man or defend his own honor. To defend his own. When they outlawed duels, they took away a man's ability to defend his honor. His honor being that gift which he gives himself, his self-respect, his self-worth. And it doesn't matter how ego-driven it is, that is his and his alone. And the government took it by outlawing duels. This also occurred when fascism was instituted. Yes, way back in the 1800s. Fascism was introduced into American government and American policy as a means to subdue the individual and bring about the collective activity of the country. And men were told that if they wanted to defend their honor, they had to use the judicial system, the legal system. And that was the first step, one of the major first steps in emasculating America, emasculating men, controlling us, in other words. Men lost the ability to fight with swords, to fight with guns, to fight with their fists in a duel. It became so prevalent, this idea of stopping men from acting like men, that we are where we are today. You can't even voluntarily choose to fight somebody without being a criminal, without having committed a criminal offense. Where the state steps in when dealing with us, they deal with us like they're children. They deal with us as a woman deals with her children. They mete out punishment as they see fit, showing favoritism. So What does this have to do with shit it's the fan? Well, it has everything to do with shit it's the fan. The Civil War took away the state's independence. It took away an individual's and a man's independence, his ability to be independent of the government, until the government were to go, which is go to hell. They could not ever again have anyone stand up to the government the way the South did and say, we won't have any more of you. They needed to further emasculate men, because they could not have men choosing to stand up and act like men. And since then, it has just been a barrage of anti-man policy. And once again, I don't care what you think about this, other than I hope that you think. When women were granted the right to vote through a constitutional amendment, that emasculated the nation of America. Because 100% of the voting population, which was male, masculine, became 50%. It was half emasculated right there. The government began to be influenced by female thinking. That is feminine thinking, soft thinking, emotional thinking, if you can call it emotional thinking. And this is a fact. Women are easier to control. Women are easier to influence when it comes to downright force and use of authority. Feminists, meaning masculated females today, feminists want to control men, but they submit themselves to government authority. Except when it comes to abortion, I guess. Anyways, they submit, but they will not submit to the male of the species. But, where I'm going with this is the country became weakened by women being allowed to vote and influence policy. Not through their husbands, but directly with the government. Now, you can say, well, that's a natural right, and you could say, well, that's a God-given right that women should be exercising too. Be that as it may, the system was not set up for that. The world is really not set up for that. It is a masculine world. To give you an example of that, when nations deal with nations, they are now acting like women. Possibly with the exception of Russia and China, maybe. Governments think and act like women, but they react and behave and solve their problems like men. Nations will say, we want this and we want that. We want it of our people and we want it from other nations. We want what we want and we want it now, right? All of these little tantrums coming out of Obama in DC, they're very feminine. They're very feminine. When they don't get their way, they bomb and they go to war. So they think like women and they act like men. As people, they want our nation, the people of the nation of the United States of America, to think like women by emasculating us and then act like women. That is, take no action. The entire world has become feminized in negative ways, but the power, the military power, is being used in a masculine way, but with the feminine mind, the feminine mindset. Can you imagine Winston Churchill giving his nation over to third world immigrants the way it is today? It's hard to imagine that. I can't imagine Teddy Roosevelt backing down to other nations or acting like a spoiled child to other nations through his policy. He acted like a man. May not agree with his policies, all of them, but he acted like a man. He thought like a man. The world used to be that way. So men have been feminized. They have had the ability to have their honor, to defend their honor, to promote their honor taken from them, so they can only behave like women. Well, fast forward to the last 30 years with the introduction of political controlled speech, politically correct speech. Men have been further emasculated. You cannot say certain things. You cannot behave a certain way. Right? We're already not allowed to duel or fight. You can't defend your honor in court anymore through libel or slander suits, which is a woman's technique. That is going to court and suing, which is asking someone else to see it your way. That's how women behave. That's how traditional women behave. Is asking the man, literally, to take care of their problem for them. Men cannot even defend their honor that way. Men's rights have been diminished, while the masculine female feminist agenda has been put forward, further reducing male influence and male power in this nation. And in the modern sense, we are at war in our very minds, and we're being controlled no longer by the government. It has done its job. The social engineers have done their jobs, people, in emasculating men so far that men are now being controlled by women in their lives, women at work, women in the street. It has brought our nation to its knees because the government is no longer controlled by men, not masculine men. The government is now controlled with female or feminine ideology and practice and thought. The idea of I want it now, I want it my way, and if I don't get my way, I'm going to throw a fit, and I'm going to take back my ball, and all the little things little girls do. The moment Obama didn't get his budget, what did he do? He started closing down parks, closing down government services. It wasn't even necessary. It was the girl attitude of I'm going to take my stuff and go. The entitlement mentality that government has fostered in people is a woman's mentality of I deserve it just because I'm alive. Whereas men don't have that mentality the way women do. If a man wants something, he knows he has to earn it, because no one is going to just give it to him. That is what we're looking at here. Men are not acting like men. Men are acting like women. Women have gone off the fucking hook. And they are thinking like women and using male aggressive techniques to get what they want. That is the masculated feminine, the masculated female, what we now call a feminist. Their ideology, their thinking has pervaded the female population in the United States. And it is used to subdue men. Why are we facing shit it's the fan? Because this nation no longer thinks logically. At the government, federal level, the state, the county, the cities, it's all about entitlements and taking from someone else so that they can get what they want. In the personal level, us as men, us as humans, even you women, you've had your ability to make your own decisions taken from you, and someone else's ideology placed over the top of them through propaganda and indoctrination. That is why our nation is weak. That is why it is on its knees. That is why we are facing shit hits the fan. Internally in our nation, when the government doesn't get its way, it threatens us with martial law. And martial law is the masculine use of power to subdue. So the government threatens us with martial law when things go bad. That is like mommy saying, you wait till your daddy gets home. That's the threat. And when daddy gets home, he whips your ass. That's the action. Outside of our nation, we've got Hillary Clinton trying to go to war with Russia, threatening Russia. You're going to do it my way. We're taking Syria. We're taking Libya. We're going to mess up Iran. We're going into the Middle East. We're going to make it the way we want it, or we're going to threaten war. They're acting like women, once again, with their minds, that mindset of it's my way or the highway. And if you don't do what we say, we're going to punish you financially, right? With sanctions, with tariffs. And they even go so far as to threaten Russia with war. Once again, that is the masculine use of our muscle on a national level. But it is being used by the feminine mind of the government. And we as men, what can we do? Real men in America, real men around the world, what can you do when 50% of the population is already against you just because of its gender? And then its influence and power over us and all men because they have been weakened, because they have no honor. That is the problem we face. We are, just because women have the right to vote, that alone handicaps us tremendously as a nation. And then the erosion from there goes. It goes downhill. The reason there is personal debt in this nation, the reason there's a personal debt in this nation is because of the overspending that individual families do. And it is estimated that somewhere between 80 to 90% of all household spending is controlled by the woman of the house these days. Is there a correlation? Can you see it? It has brought us to our knees as a nation financially. It has brought us to our knees as a nation, not just financially, it's political, it's social, it is everything has been brought down. And that is why today you and I sit down and we think about shit hitting the fan, about things falling apart, about the lack of masculine qualities in men, about the feminized nature of our country, and where it is taking us. It is taking us to the point of destruction, and we need to survive. That is what prepping is about. And none of it could have happened, none of it, if men were still men. And if they didn't allow their local politicians to get away with the shit they get away with, and the county, and the state, and the federal, if we could hold them accountable the way men hold other men accountable, this nation would be stronger, to say the least, and maybe even still a great America to live in. But the opposite of that is what reality is, and we have to deal with reality because that's what men do. Men face reality. We are facing shit hitting the fan soon. Whether it's war, whether it's financial collapse, whether it's just fucking social catastrophic chaos because of the feminized mindset. And the feminized mindset of government, while retaining masculine power and action, the ability to take action on a masculine level and apply feminine thinking. So we as individuals have to start by being men. That is what my talks about feminism and MGTOW and all that is about, and that is how it relates to shit hits the fan. Right or wrong, that is how I see it. How do you see it? I've got an early day here. I'm going to head off to work. More videos to come. More topics to come. But this one is an important one, and it's an important foundation, I think, from which to look at government and how it behaves. To look at men and how we behave, and women and why they behave the way they do. Why the country makes the decisions it makes. This is John, the Prepared Mind, wishing you a great day.